welcome. I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And if you do me a favor, please subscribe to wherever you're listening. Please subscribe to wherever you're watching. It would definitely mean a lot to me. Comment, share, like. Let's get them algorithms moving in my favor. It would definitely mean a lot. But this is where we'll start. So, April 1st, we all know is April Fool's Day, and I don't know why, but people take this day hella seriously, as far as like they really want to get someone with a prank and stuff like that. So, on April 1st, I got a notification saying that Roy Williams retired, and I'm like, yeah, man, it's April 1st. This is not true. Hell, I also got a alert saying what's his name? Kanye is gonna re-release the Nike Yeezys, even though he's in Adidas. But that's neither here nor there. But I got Roy Williams retired. I'm like, it can't be. It's April 1st. It's not true. Boy, was I wrong. It all of a sudden, you see ESPN talking about it, Fox Sports talking about it, people saying thank yous and this and that, and yeah, man, that's when I knew it was real, man. That's when I knew it was real. I'm a big North Carolina fan. If you don't know, North Carolina, you know how you have a favorite football team, favorite basketball team. North Carolina is probably my favorite team, as far as I like them more than my NBA team. I like them more than my NFL team. I am a diehard North Carolina fan. And I've liked North Carolina since my birth, pretty much. Most of my dad's side all of my dad's side of the family is from North Carolina. So it definitely is etched into my core beliefs. You know what I mean? So with Roy Williams retiring, it means a lot, man. It hits home. Roy Williams is Roy Williams is one of the greatest coaches to ever coach, and that's in every sport. He's one of the greatest coaches. He's been coaching for 33 years, and he was coaching 18 years with UNC. He has 3 national championships, all 3 with North Carolina. He has won 903 games, which is third most all time in D1 sports. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2007 and the National Basketball Hall of Fame. And he's the only coach with 400 wins in 2 schools, which is North Carolina and Kansas. And of course, now with him, you never think you're going to see this day. Like, I never thought I would see the day when, I don't know, rest in peace, of course, but I never thought I'd see the day when Kobe retired. I never thought I'd see the day when Allen Iverson retired. I never thought I'd see the day when, I don't know, Phil Jackson retired. But, it definitely hits home that Roy Williams is retiring. And, of course, thinking of Roy Williams retiring, it's easy for me to go back and think about some of the greatest moments or memories that I have watching North Carolina. I remember the Ty Lawson 2009 team with, we beat Michigan State in the national championship. Tyler Hansbrough was on that team. I remember watching Danny Green go crazy in the national championship one year. Harrison Barnes going crazy in the national championship. It's like this. You can tell how good a coach is or how important a coach is when you look at the players that he coached move on, or you see the culture that has been cultivated by him. Yes, North Carolina, we know who Dean Smith is, and North Carolina has a rich history, but it's very easy for a program to have a rich history and then all of a sudden don't. Look at Indiana. We all know Indiana's had a rich history, and now I don't remember last time they won anything. You see, Roy Williams, and he's had a lot of health problems. I think he had vertigo. I think that's what it's called. He's had multiple health problems. So I'm not upset. It sucks, but I'm not upset because I understand, COVID and this year and the last few years, he said it's taken a lot out of him, and it's been tough. But North, Roy Williams has brought a level of professionalism, a level of fun, a level of cachet to the North Carolina position. And don't get me wrong, I understand North Carolina's a blue blood. I understand anybody named Mama want to go to North Carolina. But Roy Williams was a big reason why a lot of players went. And a lot of players to this day still, consider him like a father figure, this, that, and the third. I've never met him, of course. I'm just speaking from a fan's perspective. Roy Williams is one of the greatest coaches ever. And it definitely sucks to see him go. But I like that he was able to go on his own terms as far as he was able to retire. And his legacy is still that of one of the greatest coaches to ever coach basketball. He's a lot of people when they talk about greatest coaches, you always hear Coach K. You might hear Phil Jackson. You're going to hear Greg Popovich, John Wooden, but no, Roy Williams is up there. Roy Williams is up there, and congratulations to Roy Williams. And a lot of people's asking who's next. To me, it has to be three people. It has to be three people in consideration. It has to be Herbert Davis, Jerry Stackhouse, because Jerry Stackhouse right now is coaching over at Vanderbilt, I believe. Herbert Davis, he left a really promising. His name is Steve Robinson. I think his name is Steve Robinson. I apologize if I messed up his name, but Herbert Davis left a really promising TV career to come coach with Roy Williams, and he has been with Roy Williams the second longest to Steve, and I'm hoping it's one of those three. I'm hearing other names, but to me, you want somebody to when you're coming after a legend, you want somebody that either knows the system really well, knows the program really well, or is a staple of the program. A lot of people were saying bring Rasheed Wallace back, which I can understand. A lot of people were saying call Michael Jordan to get his input. Again, it has to be three people in my opinion: Steve, Herbert Davis, or Jerry Stackhouse. And it would just suck if it's somebody else, because those three names are really embedded in North Carolina at this point. But with that being said, congratulations, Roy Williams, retiring after 33 years of coaching. I haven't even been alive for 33 years. And the fact that he was able to go to a school in North Carolina that's already rich in history with Michael Jordan, with Vince Carter and them, and with Dean Smith, and he was able to make it his own. And now there's a lot of people that are North Carolina fans that know absolutely nothing about Dean Smith, but they do know everything about Roy Williams, and that to me is a successful tenure. You won 3 national championships. That's more than a lot of schools have ever won. So, again, man, I'm happy. I'm happy that he was able to walk off in the sunset how he wanted to. Of course, I wish it would have went a little differently, especially this year in the tournament. But congratulations to Roy Williams, and I hope you have a very successful retirement. Moving forward. So, a conversation was sparked the other day that I wanted to shine some light on, and that is the WNBA rules when it comes to players leaving college. Now, for the longest, I never understood why freshmen, even if they're good enough to make it in the WNBA, like in women's college basketball, I never understood why they never went until I realized, wait, there's a rule. The rule is to enter the WNBA draft, you have to be 22 years old or 4 years removed from high school. We talk about the difference between men's basketball and women's basketball. And honestly, to me, this is a rule that makes here's the thing. We always talk about equality and viewing the WNBA in the same light that we view the NBA. And I'm a huge proponent of women's basketball can be just as entertaining, is just as serious, is just as intellectual as the men's game. And it's of course the pay gap is unfair. There's a lot of things unfair about the WNBA compared to, or let me say, women's sports compared to men's sports. But here's something that I don't understand. I don't know if the WNBA is able to change this, but why is it, if you want the WNBA to grow, wouldn't you want the best players at the best time to go? Think about it like this. Paige Buckner, Caitlin Clark, Zia Cook, Haley Jones, Ashley Owusu. All of those players are good enough at this very moment to play for a WNBA team. Yet and still, none of those players can get drafted because they don't fit the WNBA draft criteria. Hell, Paige Buckner just won the AP Player of the Year for the women's, and she's a freshman. And she will not be able to play for at least 2 to 3 years. I understand that you want more players to stay in college basketball. I understand that you want the best of the best to come into WNBA. But you can't look at a Caitlin Clark who leads the league or leads in NCAA women's basketball in scoring. I think she's top 5 in both men's and women's in scoring. You can't tell me she's not good enough to be on a WNBA team. You can't tell me Zia Cook who is killing people right now over in South Carolina. You can't tell me that she's not good enough to play in college, to play in the WNBA. You can't tell me a player like Ashley Owusu, who their team averaged damn near 100 points this year, is not good enough or has to wait to play in the WNBA. You see, we talk about the now. Again, if I'm completely off, let me know in the comments. I apologize, but the WNBA wants to grow. The WNBA has a problem. The problem is the pay gap, and the problem is a lot of these players, a lot of these women make more money and have more opportunity going overseas, which is why you see majority of the players, especially star players, go overseas in the offseason. The fact of the matter is, if you want the WNBA to grow, in my opinion, get the players in the WNBA that can play. You don't have them. Why do they have to wait? As we've seen, whether they stay 1 year or 4 years, college basketball is going to stay the same. College basketball is going to continue to grow. Look at the men's side. I don't know how. I mean, you got one and dones all the time. Yet and still, we're still watching March Madness. We talk about we want equalization in both sports. Yet and still, you have something like that. As far as the women can't go in as freshmen because they're not mature enough. I don't. And the thing is, again, I heard they want their games to develop. Paige Buckner just won the AP Player of the Year. You think she needs to develop any more right now? You think that Paige Buckner isn't better than a lot of the WNBA players? You think Caitlin Clark is not better than a lot of WNBA players? You think Haley Jones and Stanford is not better than a lot of WNBA players? See, the thing about it is, we talk about, and I'm not putting this all on WNBA, but we talk about the WNBA wants the same amount of respect as the NBA gets. Yet and still, the NBA has players. Hell, players now, they don't even have to go to college. There's going to be a couple players drafted this draft that did not touch a college basketball floor. Look at James Wiseman. James Wiseman played 3 games in college, and he was the second overall pick. I don't know what needs to change. I don't know if it can change. But to me, the WNBA wants people to respect and wants people to put more, I guess, respect on the WNBA brand, the WNBA name. I think you need to start making it. I think it needs to be more fair. There should be no reason why a player as good as Paige Buckner has to wait to go to the WNBA, especially if that's her lifelong dream. Or Haley Jones has to wait, or Zia Cook has to wait, or Caitlin Clark has to wait, or Ashley Owusu has to wait, or any of the sophomores or freshmen that are good enough this year. There should be no reason why Aaron McDonald, who's a senior now, she was good enough to be in the WNBA when she was a sophomore. She's killing people at Arizona right now because she had to wait until a senior year. She was good enough to be in the WNBA when she was a sophomore. Yet and still, she had to wait. I don't think it's fair, man. I don't think it's fair at all, but what do I know? I'm not the one that could bring change to something because, I mean, I'm just me. But I just think that rule needs to definitely be overviewed. Because again, there should be no reason why I can watch Cade Cunningham destroy over at Oklahoma State, and he only has to stay in college for 1 year. Yet and still, Paige Buckner, who just won the AP Player of the Year and Freshman of the Year, and she has to wait. That doesn't make any sense to me, man. That doesn't make any sense at all. But let's move forward. So, we talk a lot. Let's move over to basketball a little bit. We talk a lot about MVPs, and this season we've seen a lot of great players and a lot of players that, in my opinion, you know how the Kia MVP has like 10 people, and usually you look at the list and after 3 or 4, there's no chance in heaven or hell they can win an MVP. This year's a lot different. This year, when you look at the MVP rankings, there's a lot of people that can win. And I wouldn't be mad if 8 or 9 of those people won, because they have cases to make they have cases that they've built to be an MVP. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to give my top 5. Now, of course, this can all change. I could be completely wrong. I could be completely right. It is what it is. But I wanted to give my top 5 on who is, like I said, is top 5 in the MVP race. Again, this is my opinion. If you don't agree, or there's somebody that leave in the comments, we can definitely talk about it. I don't mind talking about it. But let's start with number 5. And number 5, I kind of cheated. I think it's a tie between LeBron and Joel Embiid. I think both of them at certain points of the season have had wide margins when it comes to being number 1. And due to injury, like I said, LeBron James just fell out. He'll be out for a minute. Joel Embiid will be out for a minute. I think he's supposed to be coming back today or sometime next week. But I don't think they've fallen out, but they're definitely not number 1 due to injury. And we haven't, I think it sucks for Joel Embiid. I don't think it sucks as much for LeBron because he has 4 of these things. And I think you get to a certain point where you might not be playing for an MVP anymore, which a lot of people we've seen have. But I think, it definitely was solidified this season for Joel Embiid. And even if he comes back today or comes back next week, I think that the level is just the margin that's kind of been had for them, or the margin that they're kind of being left behind is a little too big to catch up, especially with this point of the season. But I have number 5, LeBron is tied with Joel Embiid, in my opinion, because both of them were number 1 as far as an MVP sometime this year. And due to injury, they kind of fell out. So, number 4, I have Giannis. Now, Giannis is averaging pretty much 28 points a game, 11 assists, or 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. And his team is 30-17. The reason why I have him 4th, because if you look at the numbers and you look at the production, he could be MVP. But I just don't think people are going to vote for him 3 years in a row. I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of players. Hell, LeBron James could have won 3 years in a row and didn't. Steph Curry could have won 3 years in a row and didn't. James Harden, he's been in top 5 at least 5 to 6 years. The last person to win 3 years in a row was Larry Bird. I think voters these days, like, we know that the MVP is more of a narrative-based thing, and I don't think they want the narrative as, Giannis winning a third MVP in a row, especially seeing how he failed in the playoffs the last 2 years. Now, I understand that the playoffs should have nothing to do with the MVP since it's a regular season award, but I think that people remember that, especially voters, as in, you voted him twice in a row MVP, which they were well deserved, but he didn't show up. I'm not gonna say didn't show up, but the team didn't make it as far as they should have in the playoffs, and of course you're gonna look a lot at Giannis for that. So, but if you look at the stats, I mean, he's averaging, like I said, 28, 11, and 6, like that. Those are MVP type numbers, and he is the driving force for the Milwaukee Bucks. If he wasn't, I know you have Drew Holiday. I know you have. They just got Jeff Teague. I know you have Lopez, but the Bucks are going absolutely nowhere without Giannis. And Giannis is one of those cornerstone players where if he goes anywhere in the league, they will build around him. Except maybe a couple. Like, I don't think if he goes to Golden State, they'll build around him because you still have Steph. The Lakers still have LeBron and AD. But Giannis is, to me, fourth in MVP, seeing as though he's putting up MVP numbers. I just don't think he'll get many votes, seeing as he's won this 2 years in a row. So Giannis is fourth. Number 3, I have Dame. He's averaging 29.8, so he's pretty much averaging 30 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists. And his team is 29 and 18. Here's the thing. A lot of people could have Dame number 1. A lot of number 1 through 3, in my opinion, kind of can go, well, 1 and 2, in my opinion, can kind of go vice versa. But Dame Lillard, a lot of people, when we talk about point guards in the league, of course, to me, the best one is Steph Curry, but after that, a lot of people throw a lot of names around. You'll hear Kyrie, you might hear Russell Westbrook, you might hear Chris Paul. To me, Damian Lillard has been very consistent his entire career. Let me say this. When I say consistent, he's improved year after year. And I think people are really starting to see now Damian Lillard is one of, if not the best players in the league, with how clutch he is, to the fact that he's able to lead a Portland team to the playoffs year after year after year, especially a Portland team that has dealt with injury almost every year. I mean, hell, CJ McCollum missed most of the season this year due to injury. So, to me, I mean, when you're averaging 34 and 8, like that is crazy, especially with his stature, the fact that teams you go into playing Portland thinking we have to stop Dame. Everyone's game plan is stopping Dame, and he still averages 30 points a game. So it's hard for me not to put him third. The only reason why I put him third is because the people 1 and 2, their team records are better, and I just think they kind of mean more to. We'll talk about it, but I have Dame at 3. Number 2, I have James Harden. He's averaging 26 points a game, 8 rebounds, and 11 assists. And the team is 34 and 15. Here's the reason why I have James Harden over Damian Lillard. Now, a lot of people want to talk about how he ended how his tenure in Houston ended, which I understand. That was a really messy situation. But let's just look at the production on the floor. This entire year, KD has pretty much been in and out. In fact, if you really look, he's missed a lot of games, a lot more games than we expected. KD's been out. Kyrie's been out. Even though they just acquired him, Blake Griffin's been out. And the one person now, he's out now with thigh tightness or whatever like that, or hamstring tightness. But James Harden has been the most consistent player on the Brooklyn Nets. And he's got them to second in the West, even with their best player, which is KD, being out, and one of their mainstays and one of their best players, and Kyrie, being in and out, whether it's due to injury or personal reasons or whatever. And James Harden has been consistent. And James Harden, while he's not averaging more as many points as as Dame, while he's not averaging a triple double, but he has been the calm water that is Brooklyn, the crazy ship that's Brooklyn. So I understand that a lot of people don't like how he exited the Houston Rockets, even though he asked for a trade a minute ago. They just didn't trade him. But I understand a lot of people don't like that. I understand a lot of people don't like how Brooklyn has, like I said, all the, James Harden, KD, Kyrie, LaMarcus Aldridge now, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. I understand that. But when we look through all that, one thing has been consistent for the Brooklyn Nets this entire year, and that has been James Harden. And because of that, I have to put him at number 2. You can make a case for Dame being, a little more important in the MVP race than James Harden, but I'm just looking at the fact that James Harden there's been so much inconsistency as far as players and injuries and stuff on Brooklyn. The only thing that's really been consistent is James Harden, and he's brought them to second in the East. And it more than likely, depending on the next few days, they could be first. So I got James Harden number 2. And for number 1, I got Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic was top 3 when LeBron James and Joel Embiid were playing regularly. And when you look at the Nuggets, you have solid pieces. You have Jamal Murray. Now you have Aaron Gordon. You have Michael Porter Jr. But it's kind of like Giannis. Even though those are good players, the Denver Nuggets would be god-awful if it wasn't for Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic averages 27 points a game, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. Think about it. That's from a big man. That's from a big. And the fact that he has the ball majority of the time, he's able to start the offense at the top of the key or top of, at the 3-point line. He's able to bring the ball up. He has incredible handles. He has incredible footwork. And they're 30 and 18. Nikola Jokic, the reason why I have Nikola Jokic number 1 and above James Harden and Dame and above players like Giannis and maybe Steph you can throw in there is because he has been the most consistent this entire year. When we talk about LeBron and Embiid, of course, they were joustling number 1 and number 2, but number 3 usually number 1 through 3 was the same people until they got hurt. It was either LeBron, Joel Embiid, and Nikola Jokic. And, of course, number 1, those 3 were usually in the top 3. And the fact, due to injury, of course, LeBron kind of fell down. Joel Embiid kind of fell down. But Nikola Jokic has remained consistent. And people look at how the Denver Nuggets started, how they didn't start well at all. But they had injuries. They had, they were one of the teams that were one of the last ones standing in the bubble. And they had a tough 7-game series in the bubble. So, actually 2 7-game series now I think about it. Nikola Jokic has been consistent this entire year. And he is the driving force and the only reason why the Denver Nuggets has a chance to at least knock off a big name. Like they're talented enough to knock off the Clippers. Hell, they just beat the Clippers the other night, and they continuously beat the Clippers. They have enough to knock off a Utah Jazz. They have enough to knock off a Lakers, a Portland. Like and it all starts with Nikola Jokic. And like I said, for a big man to average 27, 11, and 8. And those aren't like so Shaq's 27 and Nikola Jokic 27 are completely different. Just like Nikola Jokic 27 and Dame's 30 is completely different. But Nikola Jokic can stretch the floor out and makes it easy for a lot of players because he can go down low. He can operate in the mid range with his back to the basket, face up game, and he can shoot a three. So not to mention to be a center, and he has his vision is unlike we've seen. I think he's one of the most skilled big men we've ever seen in the league, and I've said that time and time again. And I will stand on that. Nikola Jokic is one of the best big men, one of the most skilled big men to ever play in the NBA. And this year, he's showing it more than any other year. And because of that, I have Nikola Jokic number one. So that's my MVP race. Of course, you can throw in people like Steph Curry. You can throw in people like Luka Doncic. There's a lot of people that could throw their hand in the MVP. Hell, Jason Tatum can make a case. But these, of course, you can look at Chris Paul. But these are my top five. If you don't agree, it's cool. Let me know. Let me know your top five. Let me know who you don't agree with. But yeah, man, when we talk about MVP, these 5/6 because we're LeBron and Embiid, but these 5 to me have been the most consistent. I would love to put Steph Curry up there, but like I said, he's dealt with some injury and. I'm not one of those people that I put a lot into I don't put a lot into the record as much because if you look, sometimes you can be a great player, but your team sucks around you, which is why I usually put someone like Bradley Beal in the MVP race because Bradley Beal year after year leads the league in scoring. It's just the Wizards aren't that good. I look at it, but I don't put a lot of stock into, like I said, the team record because that's the team record. The MVP to me is an individual award. So, like I said, Bradley Beal can be up there, Steph could be up there, Jason Tatum, Chris Paul, Luka. There's a lot of people that can be up there, but those are my top 5. So again, let me know how you feel. Let me know who you think should be in your top 5, and who you think is MVP. So let's move forward. So. Also this week, we saw I'm not going to say big, but we saw a dust up between Russell Westbrook, his wife, I believe her name is Nina Westbrook, and Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith said some things about, Russell Westbrook had like a 35-20 assist, and he had a triple-double with like 30 and 20. And that was the 35 and 20. I think that was the first time we've ever seen that in the league. And, of course, Stephen A. Smith the next day comes on and says, that doesn't matter. He hasn't won a championship, this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. Nina Westbrook came out and has some words to say to Stephen A., so did Russell Westbrook. Here's the thing, man. Let me first dissect what Stephen A. Smith pretty much said. Stephen A. Smith pretty much said, stats don't really mean anything. He's one of the best statistical players we've ever seen. It's just, and he's never won. Not to mention he's played alongside people like KD, James Harden, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, Victor Oladipo, James Harden again when he went to Houston, now Bradley Beal, and he hasn't been able to win. That is true. I do think that there's some people in the league and some people's games that just don't they can be incredible. They just don't their game might not be as championship lending as another game. Like to me, when you look at dominance, Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook dominate the same, like they both dominate the game. But they dominate in 2 completely different ways. Steph Curry dominates from the 3-point line. He's able to get his teammates involved, assists, and he's able to dictate the momentum, the speed of the game from his shot ability to and the way that he's able to pretty much orchestrate his team. Of course, you have Draymond Green, but we're talking about Steph Curry right now. Russell Westbrook, his fire. He knows one thing, and that is east and west, north and south. And he's gonna give you he's gonna give you the energy. He's gonna give you the he's gonna give you the passion, and he's gonna give you some stats game after game, whether you win or lose. Here's the thing, man. We look at players. Like I said, there's some players that game just don't translate into championships, but that doesn't mean they weren't good. Russell Westbrook falls under a category like a Charles Barkley, like a Chris Webber, like a what's his name? Derrick Rose. It's like their games are so good they just didn't translate into winning. Now some were different than others. Like Charles Barkley most definitely could have won a championship. He just ran into Jordan. Vince Carter could have won a championship. Tracy McGrady could have won a championship. They just ran into Kobe and Shaq. You know, of course, Derrick Rose was good enough to win a championship. He ran into injuries, and he also ran into LeBron James. It's just here's what can be said. I agree with the fact that I believe with the especially with the OKC, Russell Westbrook, KD, and James Harden team, I think that they were good enough to win a championship, and it's very unfortunate that they didn't. But I don't think that I think Russell Westbrook gets unfairly criticized more than anyone in the league. I will say this. It is true that I do think that Russell Westbrook has not adapted to the game well. As far as he came into the league north and south, going north and south, energy, this, that, and the third, and he does that to this day. But the game has changed. There's no, the game isn't, when Russell Westbrook came into the league, right? It was, Dwight Howard was still dominant. Shaq still had his years in I don't remember where he was at this point, but I don't think Shaq, but I know Dwight Howard was still dominant. Andrew Bynum was still in here. It's like you were winning if you had a dominant big man. Hell, Dwight got the Magic to the championship with Hedo Turkoglu, Mikal Pietrus, Jameer Nelson, Rashard Lewis. Dwight Howard was a factor. Hell, even if you look at the Bulls teams with Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah was one of the best centers in the league in his tenure when he was with the Bulls. The game now has moved further and further away from the basket. When you look at some of the top players, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, KD, hell, you look at LeBron. LeBron James has developed a better shot. If you're not a good 3-point shooter and you're a guard, to me that's a detriment to your game. And Russell Westbrook statistically, I think, is the worst ever when it comes to that. So I do agree with the fact that Russell Westbrook has not adapted to the game well. But Russell Westbrook is still one of the best guards in the league. He's still one of the most high energy players in the league, if not the most high energy player. And Russell Westbrook is still going to go down as one of the greatest, most athletic point guards we've ever seen. I'm not saying he is the greatest. I'm not saying that he's top 10. But what I'm saying is when we talk of Russell Westbrook, we will talk about how great he was. We'll talk about the triple-doubles. We'll talk about the 20-20-20 games. We'll talk about the fact that every game he was able to give 100%, and he gave 100%. And we'll also talk about, even if he doesn't win a championship, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, I understand a lot of people don't really take the Hall of Fame seriously, whatever. I don't really care. But not everyone's a Hall of Famer. So, again, we look at Tracy McGrady's game. Tracy McGrady never made it out the first round. But Tracy McGrady is still regarded as one of the best guards to ever play. Vince Carter has never played in a championship and still considered one of the best guards ever. Hell, my favorite player of all time, Allen Iverson, has only played in one championship. And I think only won one game. Yeah, I think they were 4-1. He's still regarded as one of the best. Chris Webber is one of the best. Never won a championship. Charles Barkley. Hell, we know how great Charles Barkley was. Never won a championship. I think that, yeah, Russ. I think the difference between those players and Russ, of course, is who he's played with. But you look at like it, Russell Westbrook. Now, I will say this. To me, a lot of the times they didn't win was due to Westbrook's stubbornness to and evolve his game. And I do think that is a detriment to Russell Westbrook. But I will never look at Russell Westbrook and think that dude's trash. Like he might have some questionable decisions, but Russell Westbrook is Russell Westbrook. He's an enigma. You know what I mean? He's something that you just can't explain. But you know it's good, or you know what it is, you just can't explain it. An enigma. So again, I understand. Stephen A. Smith. We know Stephen A. Smith always has these type of takes. I mean, he's made millions off of going against the grain. He's made millions off of his voice, off of his opinion. So you're gonna understand that. And I also understand Russell Westbrook and his lovely wife coming back and saying stuff to pretty much, if you don't really got nothing nice to say about my husband or about me, just don't say nothing. I mean, hell, you look at this year, Russell Westbrook is averaging another triple-double. He's averaging 22, 10, and 11. Now, of course, the Wizards aren't winning, but he's still, again, an enigma. He's still having one of the best statistical seasons ever as far as, points and not like field goals or nothing. So, but yeah, man, that's something that happened this week, and yeah. So moving forward, so opening MLB opening week happened on Thursday, opening day happened on Thursday, and baseball's back. A lot of people love baseball, and it's exciting. It's exciting if you love baseball. This time is very important for baseball fans. I'll just say this, man. It's kind of hard. It's weird. I think baseball and the MLB and these teams have to really consider how many people they're allowing in the stands. Because hell, if you look at the Nats game, got postponed due to COVID. They were supposed to play the Mets, and I think one of the Nats players got COVID or tested positive, so they had to postpone the game. This was on the same day that the Chicago Cubs announces that they're going to have 100% capacity, like fans in the stands. And it's like, I don't know if, hell, you look at listen to Dr. Fauci and listen to all these medical professionals are saying we're not ready to pretty much go full blown 100%. Yet and still, you still see some of the things that we see in Miami and spring break and this that, and the third. And I'll just say, I'm excited for MLB being back. Of course, it's more sports, but I will just say be cautious about doing the whole how many fans you allow in the stands, especially. Hell, I know that if you look at the Knicks, you have to get like a COVID test or something like a day or two before the game. Yet and still, there's people that are forging and faking COVID tests just to see a game. I don't know if that's the same thing for these baseball teams, but I would just say be cautious about how many people you let in the stands. I understand that you lost a lot of money last year with no fans, but again, the most important thing is the players and to have the game keep going. And like if you're the Nats or the Mets and you got to postpone your first game, that's not a good look, especially when you have some people, like I said, the Cubs. I know the Dodgers are going to have a lot of fans. I know the Padres are supposed to have a lot of fans. Just definitely be careful about the amount of fans that you have. And the other biggest news from the MLB is Francisco Lindor signs a 10-year, $341 million contract with the Mets. I think this is the second time he's got a $300 million contract. Like, Lindor is one of the best players in the NL. I don't know if he is the best. I mean, you still have players like Juan Soto. You still have players like Bryce Harper, but Francisco Lindor is one of the best young players in the MLB. He's a power hitting shortstop. Like his ability to hit home runs at a high clip is definitely one reason that warrants a $341 million contract. Now, I've been one to be a little skeptical about 10 years because it's like you have a 10-year contract. You never know what can happen in 10 years. Hell, you never know what happens year to year. I'm not saying have a year-to-year contract, but 10 years is a long time. Hell, in 10 years, I'll be in my 30s. So I'll be in my late 30s. So it's just like, hey, man. I will say this. I'm not counting nobody's money. Congratulations to Francisco Lindor, $341 million. You're only worth what you can negotiate, and he was able to negotiate $341 million. We all know baseball contracts are all guaranteed. So, shouts out to you, man. I'm not here counting your money. I'm not here saying you didn't deserve it. Hey, go get your money, my guy. I will just say 10-year contracts are different for different people. I'll just say that. Like, we look at the 10-year contract that you don't see bigger teams do 10-year contracts. Like, you don't see the Yankees do 10-year contracts like that. I know they did. I think they had something close to 10 years with Aaron A-Rod, and you see how that kind of backfired for them. I know homie from the Padres, I forgot his name, but he just signed a 10-year. So, hey, man, get your money. Go do your thing. 10-year contracts are different for different markets. Like, especially if you're the Mets, you want a star player like Lindor. You want him to stay as long as possible. So I understand that. If it's someone like the Yankees or the Nats or something, it's a little easier to attract stars because you're in a bigger market, except for the Mets that have to share a market with the Yankees, and they're always going to lose. It's kind of like the Clippers and Lakers. But shouts out to you, man. Shouts out to you, and shouts out to baseball. Started April 1st. I'm excited to see how this season turns out, man, especially with the fans. There's a lot of big teams, big names that were on the move. And there's a lot of, of course, except for like the Dodgers, because the Dodgers, they're just stacked. I'm excited to see who's the last one standing. So that's that. Moving forward. Just a couple quick things. The Clippers plan on signing DeMarcus Cousins. I was hearing a 10-day contract. I think that's crazy. But and hey, man, DeMarcus Cousins, of course we saw how it ended in Houston and Golden State and stuff like that. But hey, and the Lakers, I think about it. I don't know. I think that the Clippers just need we saw they lost the other night against Denver, and I think having a scoring big man would help. I think they're gonna hope he can play if he doesn't start, I think they're gonna hope he can play like a Montrezl Harrell type role, high energy and points off the bench. I just don't know from what I've seen. I don't know if he's capable of doing that anymore, seeing as though what injuries have done to his body, especially lower leg injuries. But hey, man, if DeMarcus Cousins at his best, I don't think we're going to get him at his best anymore, but DeMarcus Cousins can still be a serviceable player. And yeah, man, I'm excited to see what happens with that. I don't think that I think it could help as far as the biggest weakness that I see from the Clippers is outside of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they don't have a consistent third scorer. And I think that they hope, if this deal goes through, I think that they hope DeMarcus Cousins can be that. They had Lou Williams, but they traded him for Rajon Rondo, which was a much-needed help at the point guard position. I think that right now they're hoping for someone like Reggie Jackson to be their third scorer, or Nicholas Batum. So I think that DeMarcus Cousins can definitely fill in for that. So we'll just see how it goes. But, of course, the deal has to go through. And lastly, just something I wanted to end on. Chris Beard, the former head coach for Texas Tech, leaves for Texas. I think this is the first time ever that a coach from Texas Tech or Texas left to go to the other Texas school. I understand brand. Like, I understand Texas is still one of the premier schools when we talk about branding. But I would also look at Texas as more of a premier school when we talk about football outside of basketball. Now, I understand, Shaka Smart left to go to Marquette, but I don't know. I think when we talk about basketball and especially recent history, it would be hard for me to leave a Texas Tech to go to Texas, seeing as though I understand, there's been great players. Like I said, KD went to Texas. Who else went to Texas? LaMarcus Aldridge went to Texas. PJ Tucker. Andrew Jones was there last year. It's like, I just don't. I look at the recent success that Texas Tech had, and I look at the recent success or lack of success that Texas had, and it's kind of, I don't know if I would have made that move. But hey, I'm not Chris Beard. You do what's best for you. Congratulations to you, my guy, and hopefully you are able to be successful. I don't want anyone to fail. So shouts out to you. And there you have it, man. That's been this week's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. Please subscribe. Please share. Please, if you're not on the YouTube, come to the YouTube to subscribe. It would definitely mean a lot. I have Unpopular Podcast merch, hoodies, shirts, long sleeves, sweaters, whatever you want. I got the link is in the description below. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And until next time, much love.